All right, so this is a remake of the recording I did yesterday for the uh, Adobe Animate Rocket. So I'm going to click Adobe Animate right there. So I'm going to open my old one just so you can see what it looks like. And we're going to recreate it. So this is essentially what we're making, right? So we're going to start over. So I'll open a new file. So file new. I want to make sure I'm on standard. Frame rate can be anywhere from 24 to 30 pixels. Frames per second. And we're going to click create. All right, so first thing I want to do is I want to explain my workspace. I have this set up as a basic workspace. You can also use small screen or essentials. Those are the three workspaces you can use. Also, over here on the right, we have our properties panel. This tells us all the information about our colors, our shapes, what tools we're using. We have our library. When we have a symbol, it'll show up in this. We have our alignment and we have our colors. All right. You can also get to the colors by double clicking right here, single clicking. And remember, everything that you do in this program has a fill and a border or a stroke. So I'm going to turn off the stroke for this. I'm going to change my color to blue. And this is going to be my color for my sky. I'm going to come down here to my timeline, which is at the bottom here. And I'm going to change my name of the layer. I'm going to title this sky. All right. This blue bar right here, this is your playhead. Once I have something on the page, I'll be able to slide it down and show you. You also have 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, or if you're zoomed in, it might look like this. We want to make sure that we have at least a frame, 1 second. 1 second is 24 frames, or 30 frames if you had it set up for 30. So 30 right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rectangle tool. I'm going to drag it over the top of my page like that. If you need to zoom in, you can hit Option minus or Command minus and plus to zoom in and out. If you don't see all the tools, you can click right here. There's some tools in here. These are drag drop. So let's say you want the pen. You find the pen tool. The pen tool is already out here, but let's say you want the pencil. You drag it over here. Put that in there. So now you have a pencil tool. And just click back on the dots to make it disappear. So what I want to do with my sky layer, I'm going to lock that layer. I'm going to come over here to the plus sign and I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to title this one ground. All right, and I'm going to click one more layer and I'm going to title this one rocket. All right, so I'm going to lock rocket and I'm going to lock sky, and I'm just going to be working on my ground layer. I'm going to click my rectangle tool, go to my color, select the color of the ground, that green color. I'm going to turn off my border on it. I don't want a border, so I'm going to click no border. Let's do that one more time, green. And I have to make sure that I'm on the ground layer, so I select my ground layer in my panel, my timeline, and I'm just going to drag the ground across like that. All right, so that's the ground. On that same layer, I'm also going to do a cloud. So for cloud, obviously I want to have white, but to use a paintbrush, I have to have a border, a stroke. So I'm going to click white for my stroke, because a paintbrush paints in lines, it doesn't paint in fills. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing some clouds. And this might be like a little bit laggy like mine is. But when you're drawing your clouds, make sure you're going all the way around and connecting it back to the start. I'm going to do a really large one right here. cumulus cloud. Alright, so those are my clouds. On my tool panel, I'm going to go look for my paint bucket. Select my paint bucket. Still have white as my color. And I'm going to click in each of these clouds to fill them. Alright, so all my clouds are filled. I'm going to come down to the bottom here. I'm going to lock my ground layer and my timeline. I'm going to unlock my rocket layer. Select my rocket layer, and now I'm going to draw a rocket. I'm going to do it point by point. So using my pen tool, I'm going to choose my color. I'm going to choose black as my color, or red or something. Alright, and then so I'm going to draw out my rocket. If you're on your move tool, you can hold down space. Oh, if you're on the right layer. Oh, I was on the right layer. So I'm holding spacebar to drag my screen so I can make my rocket a little bit smaller. We click on my pen tool. And I apologize, I'm having a hard time breathing. If you can hear me breathing, it's because I have my nose is all stuffy. But I'm gonna click, and I'm gonna make my rocket. I have to click point by point. Alright, there's my rocket. Looks like a sword. Alright, so I have my rocket. And what I want to do now is fill my rocket. So I'm going to fill it with red or with black. So I'm going to use my paint bucket and fill it. And now I'm going to zoom out. Control plus or control minus or command plus and command minus, I think. Alright, so now what I have to do is now I have to make a path for my rocket. So I'm going to come over here. Let's do one first for the sky before we do the rocket. Click off my sky layer, unlock it. Wow, the other two layers are locked. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to 3 seconds. I'm going to right click and say insert frame. Alright, so what I did, and you can see my playhead, I can drag it now. I created the blue sky to last for 3 seconds in my design. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock my sky layer again. I'm going to unlock my rocket layer. Actually, no, I don't have to unlock it. I'm going to click on my rocket layer, and I'm going to go to 2 second marks. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say insert frame. Alright, so what I did was I dragged my rocket all the way to 2 seconds. I'm going to do the same for ground. So I'm going to right click on the 2 second mark and say insert frame. Alright, so now I have all of those, and you see if I go past 2 seconds it disappears. 2 seconds is all we need. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on my rocket layer and I'm going to say convert to motion tween. So I have to unlock it to do that. So right click, create motion tween, and it's going to say, do I want to turn my tween into a symbol? And I'm going to say okay. So what that means is when you come over to my layers, I have a symbol now, alright, for that ship. So I'm going to come all the way to 2 seconds, right at 2 seconds. I'm going to grab from the inside of my rocket where the circle is. I'm going to drag it all the way up into the air, to the top of the page, but not past it. Alright? Next thing I'm going to do, so we can see how that works. So it zooms up there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give my rocket a little motion. So I'm going to come down here to like 20. I'll do 20 and 40. So at 20, what I want to do with my rocket is I want to grab it at I want to click on the rocket and drag it over a little bit. And then I'm going to come over here to 40 and do the same thing. Click on my rocket and drag it over a little bit. Now my path is a little bit different, so it has a little bit more motion. And if you don't like that, you can always drag it back. You just have to make sure you're on the right point. So maybe a little bit less of a movement. And if you want to smooth it out, you can come over here until you see the curve. You can smooth it out by clicking in. So that's a pretty funky looking rocket path, but it's okay. All right, so next thing I want to do is I want to lock my rocket layer. I'm going to unlock my ground layer. I'm going to right click on it on the gray bar, and I'm going to say create motion tween. And this is pretty much the last step that we're going to be doing. I'm going to drag my motion tween, my timeline to 2 seconds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything on my screen by dragging a box over it. I'm going to click on something that's easy to grab, like the ground or a cloud. And I'm just going to drag it down all the way off the screen. All right. So to play our animation, we're just going to come over here to hit play. And I'm going to loop mine by clicking this, and I'm going to hit play. Oops. Let's make sure that we're playing the whole thing. All right. And if you wanted to have more like space or clouds up here, you could just add another little bit in between the 2 second mark and the 3 second mark. And that's it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go File, save it, call it Rocket 2, click Save. I called my Rocket 2 because I had already have a file in there called Rocket. And then now I'm going to export it, export animated GIF. And I just want to make sure I have my transparency off so that I can see my clouds. And then I'm going to click Save. And to open this document later when you're turning it in, you have to make sure you open a GIF file in a browser. It has to be a web browser. It can't be anything else. And that's it. So I hope you liked the tutorial. All right.